Hello and welcome to Coffee and Conversation here on BTCN. I'm your host, Shashank Bengali. I'm here with Laurent Stévenart. He's the Singapore country manager for Impossible Foods. Laurent, thanks for joining us today.
Nice to meet you.
Tell us about Impossible. We've seen the burgers, we know the product a bit, but what is it all about and who are you marketing the product toward?
So our mission is to restore biodiversity in the world by removing animals from the way that we eat and replacing animals with plant-based meats. We want to make sure that these plant-based meats are as delicious as what we're actually replacing. So we're actually focusing on meat eaters. Meat eaters are our primary target. We found out that people love meat, but they don't necessarily love the fact that the meat comes from animals.
What is the barrier for them? Is it the taste? Is it the price? Is it a combination?
It certainly is a combination. As much as we are building awareness in the market, we still have a long ways to go. We're constantly educating our potential consumers on the environmental impact that animal meat is having and the benefits of eating, of course, plant-based, and on the nutritional benefits of plant-based meats.
So it's not just a question of being green or being ethical. You're also looking at a nutrition proposition here as well, that actually it's better for health, for the individual's health, not just maybe the planet's health.
Yes, absolutely. If we are to replace animal meat by 2035, we need to come up with a product that tastes just as good, that behaves just as well.
Obviously, other players in the space are developing cell-based and other kind of biologically derived but lab-grown products. Is there space for all these players in the market? And tell me a bit about what you feel Impossible offers compared to others who are developing cell-based or other alternatives.
The fact that there are competitors on the market is actually very good news for us, as it does increase awareness, and it just increases the awareness as a whole for consumers. So we welcome all and any competition, that's for sure. Our only competition today is the animal-based meat industry. That's what we're going after. We know that 95% of Impossible consumers eat meat today, so there's huge potential there, and we prefer to compete against the 95% of consumers on animal-based meat rather than focus on our direct competitors today.
I know that there's been a lot of effort put into, as you mentioned, the sizzle, for example, and the way the patty is seared and things like that. How much of it is beyond the taste, is really the aesthetic and the kind of those types, the appearance of it when you're going after a consumer who's really quite a fan of the existing product?
We launched in retail last October, which is also something that has definitely impacted availability as a whole. Finally, we want to make sure that maybe chefs or consumers understand the versatility of our product. Impossible Beef is not only a burger; it is by far the most important. But at the same time, you need to make sure that it's just as available and as versatile as animal meat that it replaces. Another point is on price. We know that price has been a barrier to trial, and it is something that we're tackling as we go on. As we scale and as volumes grow, of course, we have been able to bring down price. We brought down price actually for the first time in March of 2020 by 15%. And recently, at the beginning of this year, we were able to do a second phase price drop of more than 15% in the food service space. So that's definitely also helped in terms of accessibility.
So I see you're not really aiming for this to be a premium product, and maybe a consumer would consider paying 10 or 15% more for an Impossible product, knowing that it's an alternative and it's going to be green and healthier. You really think that the only way to win this battle is to compete equally or undercut on price with beef itself?
It's quite rare, actually, for price cuts to happen that frequently, and for the price cuts to be that substantial. And therefore, it really shows to consumers and to the market that as we grow, we will give the benefits back to the final consumer so that they can really enjoy what it is that we produce.
And so the fact that you are bringing prices down is part of that education that shows that here's what we're all about. But it does bring me to the question about supply chains, because we've seen obviously around the world with the pandemic, supply chains of everything disrupted. And we knew early on in COVID-19 that there were disruptions with traditional animal meat supplies in some places. How did the pandemic affect Impossible's supply chains?
COVID has demonstrated that the animal meat industry is not as sturdy as it always portrays to be, and this fragility will continue and will probably actually become increasingly important in the future if the way that we consume meat doesn't change. In terms of Impossible Foods, we really haven't had any kind of issues in terms of supply chain. All of our meat is produced in the US. We import it direct to Asia, and that hasn't been disturbed at all, actually. With COVID, unfortunately, a lot of restaurants had to temporarily close down in the different markets where we were in, and therefore it really pushed us to increase our presence in the retail space. So we actually grew more than 100x since March of 2020 in the retail space in the US, in Canada, in Singapore, and in Hong Kong, which shows that there is definitely an appetite for this product.
As you look to the future, what do you see in terms of the ability of meat alternatives, plant-based and otherwise, to penetrate in Asia? Do you think that within 10 years every country could have access to these products? Do you see a tipping point, for example, in Singapore, where maybe there could be a point where alternatives take over traditional meat in the near future?
We're going to keep on working on price, and we're going to get to price parity, if not undercut the price of animal meat in the future. In terms of availability, as mentioned, we're in 600 restaurants in Singapore. If you take into account the environmental impact and the health perspective, there's no reason why we should not reach this tipping point very fast and go even further in that in the future. I think for me, the most motivating part of working at Impossible Foods as well is that we can keep on improving the product and we can keep on improving our technology. I don't think we can afford to find a balance, unfortunately. At this stage, the impact that animal-based meat has on the environment is just not sustainable going forward, especially with the growth of population. So I think that at this stage, what we have to focus on is to provide an alternative that's just as good, if not better, than what we're replacing. And that's where our efforts should be.
Laurent, thank you so much for walking us through all that. The future of our planet may literally depend on what Impossible Foods and your other competitors in the space do. So we appreciate the time. It's all the time we have for today, unfortunately. Thanks for joining us on Coffee and Conversation here on BTCN. I'm your host, Shashank Bengali, and we'll see you next time.